So, I want to talk about the Buddha's core teaching of cause and effect. We see that in every part of our world. When you have an apple seed, you grow an apple tree, you don't get a pear tree, you don't get a plum tree, and you certainly don't get an elephant. So the genetics in an apple tree are determined from seed. And the same is true with many different parts of our world. So there's cause and effect that plays out in nature, there's cause and effect that plays out in our biology, there's cause and effect that plays out in the way that we think. So the Buddha discovered or described this process of cause and effect as it is related to intention, where we focus our mind. And what he was also able to elucidate, which is pretty remarkable, is that even before we are clear about where we want to focus our intention, there's ways in which our ability to choose is shaped by the habits that we have. And these habits are set in place through a whole process, and that process is determined by not seeing clearly. So not seeing clearly then sets up habits. The habits then impress themselves on our sense bases. Our sense bases then are primed to see or to hear or to taste or to touch in a way that then supports the reinforcing of the habits, and our choice of where we focus our attention is then influenced by all of this that is going on. So when we understand that and we see that it's operating, so for example, we might have a habit of getting anxious when we don't know or we're not in control. And our anxiety would then spin into wanting to find ways where we can know and find ways where we can be in control. And we have then created all kinds of different thought patterns that support these habits that then reinforce themselves into behaviors. So when we see that that's what's going on and we recognize that anxiety isn't so much fun and that there might be other things that we can do that are more fun, then we can learn to recognize the pattern of anxiety through the sensations that are accompanied by it. And when we notice that it's happening, we can refocus our attention on something else. It can be neutral, like counting the green things in the room, or counting backwards by 100 by sevens, or it could be to focus our attention on something that makes us smile or laugh, or we can wash dishes. Something that's neutral or positive that shifts our attention away from what's making us anxious. And that redirect of our attention then diffuses the energy in the pattern of anxiety and then energizes whatever it is that we've put our attention onto. So if our favorite go-to when we're feeling anxious is to do something that makes us laugh, then it makes it easier to laugh. We have laughter more available to us, more accessible to us. And that becomes a response that we can open up to. Now, for most people, it's not an easy next step to go from anxiety to laughter. But when you have friends and you have silly things that you know how to do to help make you laugh, then there's support for doing things like that. So, and the more we shift away from the familiar pattern of anxiety into a new pattern, like being silly or laughing or doing something like counting the green things, then we de-energize the habit that is in place around anxiety, and we energize the possibility of all of these other choices. So neuroplasticity really looks at our capacity to create new pathways, and that we can have a big influence on the way that we are thinking and feeling based on the choices that we're making, and the understanding of the brain chemistry and the repetitive nature of how to work with wholesome choices and how to interrupt unskillful choices in order to optimize this.